I'll just like hold it there for now.
Well, for now, look back at my screen. You can close that browser off that took you to that website. You don't need it at the moment. We're going to do everything on my screen today. Okay. Now, what this is going to do is throw at you in random order addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division problems, including positive and negative numbers.
All right.
And it's primarily single digit. Okay. So what I'd like you to do today is just answer these without a calculator. Very important that you not use a calculator here.
Yeah.
Right, and that's for your practice too.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll help you. If you don't know the answer, I'll know and we'll get the right answer. And then what I'd like you to do is after we're done, I just want you to treat this as a game. It's a game that you want to get good at.
Yep.
And I don't mean just good. I mean 99% good. If you are only 98% good, then you're going to go and use your calculator because you want to be certain. And that's a trap because the moment you start using your calculator all the time, you forget how to do them in your brain.
All right.
That's problematic when you get to algebra and geometry. You've got to be able to do this stuff in your brain. And I'll explain before we end our session today, I'll explain why I believe that. But what I'd like to do today is let's just go through some of these. Now, what I want you to do is give me the sign, the plus or minus sign first, and then the answer.
Negative.
What's a negative divided by a negative?
Positive.
Okay.
So
it's a positive. I don't need to write that. What's 72 divided by 9?
8.
Okay. So it's a positive 8. Okay. It says correct. It'll tell you if you make a mistake. Keep going.
33.
Sign first. Sign first because that way you can break it up into two different problems. Once you get the sign, then you just have to figure out what 7 times 6 is. But the sign is better to get first rather than second. When you multiply a minus times a plus, what do you get?
Negative.
Correct. So that's the first thing I'm writing is a negative. Now what's 7 times 6?
49.
42.
42.
Okay. And let me say a few things about this. This is memorization. That's all it is. It's not counting up on your fingers. It's not anything but memorization. It's not saying 7 6 times. In other words, I'm not doing in my head 7, 14, 21, 28, like that. I'm memorizing that 7 times 6 is 42. That's what I need you to do. Sign first.
Negative 10.
Speed is important, but not as important as accuracy. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through these as fast as you can, but only with accuracy. If you're not accurate, speed doesn't help.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah. 32. Three.
Very good. Let me just mention something while we're looking at this problem. A lot of people have trouble with a lot of negative signs. Okay? That's a negative sign. That's a negative sign. That is a subtraction sign. So the way I tell everybody to do subtraction problems is do them as addition problems. And the way you do that is you change the subtraction sign to a plus and you change the sign of what was being subtracted. So 2 minuses are the same as 2 pluses. And now the problem is minus 8 plus a plus 11. That's fairly easy to do.
All right.
And that's how you get the 3. So you got it correct. Whoops, hold on a second. I forgot. I got to take it off. Okay, keep going.
0.
If it's a plus, you don't need to say plus. You can just ignore the plus. But
9.
Okay.
5. 3. 14. 13 or 7.
Okay. Again, let's do our little trick. This is the subtraction sign, right? Okay. So what the problem really is I'm going to change that to a plus, and then I have to change that to a minus. Because we were really subtracting a positive 10, now we're going to be adding a negative 10. So if I make this the problem, nobody has any problems with this, right? You know what that is. What is that?
That's negative 7.
Negative 13. But
Negative 13.
the thing is that it's relatively easy to add 2 negative numbers. It's hard to subtract a positive number. This gives a lot of people a lot of problems. Okay? But if you just turn all your subtraction problems, you don't need to turn them all into it. If I say 7 minus 2, you don't need to turn that into an addition problem. You know the answer is 5.
Yeah.
And if I say 2 minus 7, you don't really need to turn that into an addition problem. You know the answer is 5, and since you're subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number, it's got to be negative, so that's got to be negative 5. What throws people is when you have multiple dashes, like this problem here. In other words, you have to determine which is the subtraction sign and which is the negative sign.
Yeah.
Whoops. Huh. What happened? Oh, here we go. Okay, keep going.
Negative 30.
Get the sign first. When you do a negative times a negative, what do you get?
Positive.
Okay. Whenever you do a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative, you're going to get positive. If the signs are the same, you get positive.
All right.
When you're adding and subtracting, it depends on the size of the number, what you get. In other words, if I'm adding minus 5 to a plus 6, then my answer is 1 because 6 is bigger than 5. But when you're multiplying and dividing, it's actually quite a bit easier. Now, let me cover one other thing that I think is extremely helpful. It's the rule of nines. Do you know the rule of nines?
I don't know what it is, but I think I might have an idea of what it is, but I don't know.
What is 9 equal to?
18.
What's 3 times 9?
27.
What's 4 times 9?
36.
Notice, when you multiply a number by 9, the answer, the digits always add up to 9. 18. 1 and 8 adds up to 9. 2 and 7 add up to 9. 3 and 6 add up to 9. If I multiply 9 times 10, I get 90. 9 and 0 add up to 9. Furthermore, the first digit is always exactly 1 less than that digit. So if I say what's 7 times 9, you know the first digit is a 6. What's the next digit have to be?
3.
Uh-huh. So the nines tables are actually the easiest tables to memorize because of this little rule.
I think some of the easiest tables are like 11 and 10 though.
What's that?
I think like the easiest tables are like 11 and 10.
Well, yes. There's some tables that are extremely easy. The ones table is super easy. The two tables is pretty easy. The five tables is really easy, right? 5 times 8 is half of 8, 4, with a 0 on it, 40. Whenever you multiply anything by 5, it's really easy.
Yeah.
So the only things that you really have to work at to memorize are the 6s, 7s, and 8s table.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty easy. 5 times 6, half of 6 is 3. The answer's got to be 30. Come on.
Negative 22.
Good.
19.
Good.
42.
Okay. This is what I discover with most people, is that they're a lot better at this game than I think they are. And I base that totally on some of the difficulties you had in solving equations last session. Oddly enough, I have quite a few students that are very good at this game that I'm showing you right now, but they can't carry it over into solving an equation. When I give them an equation, let me give you an example. They lose their arithmetic skills. If I say 3x minus 4 divided by 5 equals 9, here's the reason that this skill is so important. That's an algebraic equation, right? You're familiar with those? You know how to solve that?
Yeah.
Well, notice the first step, you multiply everything by 5. The next step, you add 4. And the last step, you divide by 3. So just a simple algebraic equation like that requires you to do 3 of these problems. You do not want to have to use a calculator to do that. Okay, I want to multiply 5 times 9, so now I have 3x minus 4 equals 45. Notice those two add to 9. And I'm going to add 4 to both sides, so I get that. And then finally, I'm going to divide both sides by 3, which is an improper fraction, but that's my answer. And that's what algebra is all about. It really is. Algebra is all about having a series of problems where each problem you have to do like 3 to 6 calculations.
Yeah.
That's it. It's as simple as that. And if you have to use calculators to do those, you're in trouble, because instead of a 10-second problem, it becomes a 30-second problem. And you're handicapped all the way through high school. So I just can't recommend enough you getting really good at this game. Okay?
All right.
And it's not that hard to do, and it's not even that miserable. In other words, if you were to spend 5 minutes a night on this website, you can't believe how good you would get. You would not be making any mistakes at all. And that is going to put you in a position to handle algebra, geometry, and everything that comes after that. It's going to make you about 1,000 times more able to do all of that math.
Yeah.
So this ability, and you're not different than anybody else. This is the biggest problem I face with my math students, my high school math students, is they never mastered this. And so they're kind of handicapped throughout math. And I don't want to see that happen to you. I want to see you have a really strong foundation. And that foundation is based on being able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide positive and negative single-digit numbers.
Yeah.
I don't even care if you don't know how to do 12 times 13. I expect you to use a calculator on that. But if you don't know how to do 9 minus 4, that's problematic. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's keep going here. What do we got here?
15. 10.
You know, I once had a senior in high school who was getting an A in algebra, and I was tutoring her on the SAT. And she was 100% dependent on her calculator, to the point where a problem came up, and it was, when you multiply a number by 10, you know what she did? She reached for her calculator. To multiply a number by 10, it just shows you that she was 100% addicted to her calculator. Multiplying a number by 10, you can't get any easier than that. Agree?
Yeah.
You just add a 0 to the number. And yet she didn't know how to do that, and she was a senior in high school. She is the only student I've ever had that had absolutely 0 skill in this game, and yet still made it work. Now, she's going to run into problems when she gets into college, but somehow she managed to get to be a senior in high school without knowing how to do this stuff. And it's really easy to do, because calculators are everywhere. You've had a calculator from day one of your first grade, I'm sure, right?
I don't remember.
What's on your phone?
My point is that when I grew up learning math, we didn't even have calculators. So you couldn't become dependent on them. You had to do it in your head. And that's an advantage for my generation, because when you grow up in a generation where you always have calculators, it's really, really easy to get dependent on it. And it's clear why. If you're doing it in your head and you're only going to get 90% of them accurate, pretty soon you stop doing them in your head and you do it on the calculator, right? I mean, the most important thing when you're taking a math class is to get the answer right.
Yeah.
The problem is the moment you do that, the moment you take that step where you say, I'm going to answer everything on the calculator, everything you've memorized goes out the window.
Yeah.
You don't retain it because you don't use it. You only retain those multiplication and division tables if you use them. If you use a calculator most of the time, you're not going to retain it. So, okay, let's do a few more of these. This is 10, obviously. Go ahead.
32.
Yeah. Now, if you forget this one, the way to do it would be 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, right? It's 4 eighths. And you could just add those. 8 plus 8 is 16, another 8 is 24, another 8 is 32. So sometimes if you forget what 8 times 4 is, you can actually figure it out. The only thing I hate to see people do is use their fingers to add and subtract. To me, that is the worst thing you can do, because what it means is you haven't memorized it. Okay? So what's this one?
Negative 10.
Good. Now, what I'm already seeing is that you're a lot better at this than you were in our session solving algebra problems. And I always ask people, how can you be so good at this and yet you can't translate it into an equation? And nobody ever gives me an answer. They don't know, but that's all we're doing. is we're just practicing your skills so that you can use them in equations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's this?
2.
Okay.
8.
Yeah, these, you pick these up whether you want to memorize them or not.
Negative 22.
Okay, we got a negative times a negative. Figure out the sign first, always. Whenever you're doing multiplication or division. If you're doing addition or subtraction, totally different story. But when you're doing multiplication or division, figure out your sign first. That takes care of 50% of the answer. Then the only thing you have to do is multiply 11 times 2.
22.
Okay.
60. 39.
Right. Turn it into an addition problem. In other words, change that first negative sign to a plus, and in order to do that, you have to change everything in the parentheses, the sign on it. So this becomes 3 plus a plus 6, which is just 3 plus 6.
2.
Yeah, when you are adding a negative number to a positive number, which is what we're doing here, what you're really going to do is subtract the two numbers. And then you're going to put the sign on the answer that's the sign of the bigger number. Well, the bigger number is 7. It has a plus in front of it. So we know the sign on our answer is going to be plus, and then 7 minus 5 is 2. Oh, I hate that they put this one on here. It's actually not the correct answer. You can't divide by 0. The first rule in math, no matter what country you're in the world, the first rule in math is you cannot divide by 0. So even 0 divided by 0 is not necessarily 0. Now, that's what the correct answer is here. I know that because I've seen this problem come up before. But in actual math, that is not the correct answer. You just can't divide by 0. If I say 1 over x, then x can never be 0. Ah, they didn't like 0. It says try again, notice. Interesting. What are they looking for? 1? No. That's because I don't know what they want me to answer, because the answer is undefined. Let's see if we accept that. Undefined. I don't know what they want. I think it's a bug in their program because, okay, so now how do I advance after a problem like this? Well, I guess I would refresh the screen. In other words, when you run into this, you're going to find the same problem that I just found. No matter what I answer, it doesn't like it. So it doesn't let me go to another problem. Well, if I want to go to another problem, I can go back to the website from the start, like flashcards right there, positive and negative numbers, or I can just reload it and it should load a fresh problem, and it did. So when you get the 0 divided by 0 problem, just know you're going to have to get around it somehow. This actually, believe it or not, this kind of website is not easily found on the internet. It took me a long time to find this. You can search for digital flashcards, and they will give you similar problems, but they don't include positive and negative numbers, and they don't randomly throw them at you. This is the only site I have ever found, eMathLab, that does this. And this is the only thing I ever need to work with on students. This is a very valuable website. And notice over on the left here, it goes up. It covers algebra problems, geometry, statistics. So this website's going to come in handy for you for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely save this on your computer to be able to get back to it. But
Yeah.
over the summer, just make sure you get really good at this game. By really good, I mean almost never making a mistake.
All right.
You don't want to make more than one mistake out of 100 problems. Because if you do, you're going to go back to your calculator. And I don't want to see you go back to your calculator. Okay?
Yep.
So that's the main thing I wanted to do today, was just to introduce you to this website. And you don't need my help. I'm happy to do this with you. If, a month from now you want to sign up for another half-hour session, I'll go through and monitor your progress and your skill, and then maybe we'll get in and do some algebra equations. Once I'm satisfied that you're really good at this game, then you're ready to go forward.
All right.
We'll go.
I think that might be a good thing to do some kind of pre-algebra work when we're ready for that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know exactly what she's going to be facing with next year and the kind of problems she's going to need to be able to do. But without a doubt, her skills have to be good in this stuff here. And she doesn't need my help for this. She can do this on her own. And that's one reason it's so valuable. Okay. But if I'm working with somebody regularly, I usually spend 5 minutes on this. If there's somebody that is not really good in this, I'll almost always spend a few minutes doing these just to check on them. And that gives them enough motivation to practice it because they want to be good at it the next time they get quizzed on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, hey, David, Kathy will be paying you when she gets back home here, and so we'll take care of that. And then
I'm not sure which website the best website to use for me. Let me write it out just so you can see it. It's Digital Math Tutor. I actually use 2 websites, one for in person and the other one for online.
Okay.
But this is the easiest one to pay with PayPal.
Okay, sounds good. That's how I found you. So we'll definitely
go to the first page and scroll down. You'll see a Buy Now button. Just need to click that button, put in $18, and you're done. Much easier than the alternative way of paying, which is to send it to my email address.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, when she gets back, we'll take care of that, and that's good. And then we'll I'll be working with Kate. Well, she'll be on this website every day, and then we'll kind of monitor it from there, and then let's see what the next steps.
Sounds good. Kate, you have a good summer, and maybe we'll work another few times together over the summer.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.